Hey, hi. Good morning, everybody. It's Emily Miller at Facebook for beatshop.com, Facebook Live. We're just getting rolling today with our second For the Guys program. And I really want to introduce you to one of our newest teammates here at beatshop.com. Kara, bring him around this way. As he's really cute, and I know that his mama Kate is missing him very much because she had to go to Bead and Button. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to see the little guy. This is Alfie, everybody. Alfred T. Pickles. Don't bite. You have to look nice for everybody. And he is the reason that we're all smiling every day right now at beatshop.com. Look at you. You're on the internets. I know, Alfie. Huh. And he has his own Instagram page too. But I thought everybody would really like to see him because he's super, super cute. And he's posing for pictures and being such a good boy. So, Mama Kate, this is where he's at, and he's all fine. We're all having a good time with him, but I'm sure he misses you for sure. Okay? So that was our kitten moment for the day. We'll have another one next time, just so that you guys all get a chance to see how we treat our employees here at beatshop.com. We make sure that there's kittens to play with. So, we're on, and we're live, and Kate is away for the day, for the week. She's in Milwaukee, or on her way to Milwaukee for a Bead and Button show. She and Janice are going to meet up there and teach some classes, so it's really exciting to get to be here by myself. And of course, I'm the singleton teacher today, so I have to talk to myself, and I'm going to talk to you and talk to Brandon. But this is a live Facebook class, and I want to make sure everybody's chiming in. It looks like we are. We have Brandon behind the camera. We have Janice and Drea, perhaps, in Virginia. I hope we have Gita also chiming in from Norway. And Norway? Denmark. Sorry, Gita. Wrong one. So everybody's here. I'm really excited. I want to make sure that everybody remembers that when you check in here in the morning at 10:30, we usually have a little bit of chit-chat and a little bit of business that we take care of first thing in the morning. So if you're watching this on the replay, you can scroll past this part about 10 or 15 minutes in, and then we get into the rest of the learning for today. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel. It's the Bead Shop on YouTube. We post all of our episodes there, and it comes up just a little while after we're finished here. But they're also posted on our Facebook Live tab on the website, and of course on the Facebook page for beadshop.com. So there's lots of places you can check in with those. One advantage to looking at things on YouTube is that there's no commenting, but sometimes we answer questions that people ask, and so it's kind of handy sometimes to have those comments. We definitely look them over later, and we do our best to really check in with everybody and make sure we catch all the comments and questions. Anything coming up, Brandon, I need to address?
We do have, Gita is here.
Oh, good. Hi, Gita. Thank you so much.
And everybody loves your top there.
Oh, thank you, guys. This is my pretty Mexican shirts. I have a few of them. I have a friend that goes to Mexico real regularly, and she keeps me pretty well supplied, so I appreciate them. Looks like everybody else is chiming in. Yep, it looks like a beautiful day. Excellent. All right. We're on our way then, I think. Have I gotten through all the business parts? I think I did. Today's class, or today's presentation, is kind of a continuation that we're doing for towards making jewelry for guys. And I know my husband will wear jewelry that I make him. Not everybody's husband or brother or boyfriend or son will. But we do have a guy gift-giving occasion coming up really quickly, Father's Day. And I also look at the idea of having Father's Day for single moms who are mom and dad. They get to have two, a Mother's Day and a Father's Day.
And we have graduations.
And we have graduations. That's right, Brandon. I almost forgot about that. Lots of graduations coming up. You know, colleges and high schools. Everybody's kind of busting out for the summer. But, you know, I think this is also a great project for somebody who might be a guy, a dad in the life of someone, even if they're not really the bio dad or anything like that. But for grandpas, for uncles, for folks that help out, I think this can be a really nice project. You know, it was interesting when the opportunity for me to do this particular project came up, and I do a little bit of laddering, and that's kind of what our primary goal is here today. But laddering's not like my first love. It's not the thing that I just die for. I enjoy it, but it's kind of not the thing I'm most experienced at. So one of the things I liked about doing this particular project is it's nothing but laddering, and it's quick. If you want to make a present or two before we get to Father's Day, which is coming right up on Sunday, you have time to do this. And we can use lots of different choices of beads. We are using some leather. If you wanted to make this for somebody who was maybe vegan and didn't want to have the leather, the surfer cord would work. And we are going to work with some big hole beads, so things work up kind of quickly, and we're just making single wraps. Did you have an input, Brandon, for me?
No, well, beadshop.com might actually be Kate and not Gita.
Oh!
I don't know how to tell the difference. But Kate just said she was so happy to see her baby.
Oh, I think it's Kate then.
Yeah.
Well, we might hear from Gita too, for sure. Oh, Kate, we're happy to show your kitty for sure. He's delighting everyone and learning all kinds of new bad habits today. If you have somebody who's a vegan or someone who's a guy who's got a job where his hands get wet all the time, or he's in and out of the water a whole bunch, it's really nice to try the surfer cord, which I really like the look of, and it will work exactly like the 1.5 leather in this particular case. So I picked out a few colors of that I thought that would work really nicely kind of in our project today too. And we'll go over these all in depth. Let's see, have we got anything else coming up? And yes, Karen, that is my new measuring tape because we can't find the other one. Oh, and Gita's back too. Okay,
Yeah,
so we have everybody.
The gang's all here.
Every once in a while, I forget too and post a speed shop, so I have to always remember to switch over. So the gang's all here. That's really great. So, you know, for the guys, I find that most folks, most men that I run into, really like jewelry that's a little bit on the simpler side, a little bit on the less fussy and complicated side. So we have 3 different designs, and they all actually work very similarly. They're all laddered bracelets with a nice button clasp with leather, and Janice picked out 3 different pattern colorways for us and 3 different materials list for us. These are all on the Bead Shop page. If you go to the Bead Shop page, click on the Facebook tab, and it'll pop up in the left-hand corner, so it works there for the most recent items. Brandon, you want to come in a little bit closer, and I'll go over a few of these bits and pieces that we've got here. Hey, Spidey Stamps, you're in Nice, California? That's awesome. I'm about to move to Kelseyville, so I'll be up your way real soon. So we have 3 different patterns that we picked out, and these all have kind of guy-centric names as well. The first one is called Super Dad, and this is made with our fine silver, so pure fine silver Bali beads, leather, and black Ceylon. So the fine silver beads are really nice. They're heavy and solid. They're a little pricier, but it really does make quite a statement of a bracelet. You know, I think this one would look especially nice next to a watch if you're a guy or person you might be making this for is a watch wearer. I think this would be a great one with a watch. We paired it with the Sugar Skull button from Cynthia Thornton. And Cynthia's also going to be at Bead and Button with Kate. I'm hoping they all have a really good time. Missing you guys. But that Sugar Skull button is really nice. It's got lots of detail, but it's really smooth and durable. Good weight matched up with this. The next one we have is called Papa Bear. And Janice, I really like that you picked out these colorful rondelles. They kind of remind me of beer colors almost. If your guy's a outdoorsman or somebody who likes to work in nature a bunch, I think this is a great color combination to work with. And it doesn't look like Janice did any kind of patterning at all with these stones. These beads, she may have used them right as they come off the strand, because the strand actually is a mix of colors. So it's got some ochre and some reds in there, and they all have a little bit of a Picasso finish. I also noticed that she snuck a couple of these Bali silver spacers in, and I really like having those to taper down at the beginning and the end of this bracelet. And then we have the Making Waves silver button, and you know, again, very interesting design, intricate, pretty, but very smooth. It's not going to catch on things, not too fussy, doesn't have any kind of rhinestones going on or anything like that. And the last little one that Janice picked out, it has also a really pretty mix of Picasso stones in it. And this is called Aged Ragnarok. And these beads are glass beads, but again, a blend of Picassos and even a blend of finishes. There's actually a matte brick red in here that's really attractive. And again, not up and not done in a pattern, just set up so that you have a good variety of all of those colors. Same black 1.5 millimeter leather, this time with the antique brass Bali button. And again, I think having some texture and having some stuff going on this button is great for guys, but I would want to keep it to be kind of simple as a profile. It's not going to catch on anything. It's not too glitzy, glammy. I think this works really well in this case. So all of these use beer or bear. This one was actually called Papa Bear, but I thought it had kind of beer tones to it, right?
Papa Bear beer.
Papa Bear beer. Papa Bear. You know, a guy with a beard. Let's put another B in there. And this actually one is called Deer Pops, and I like that Deer Pops. I think this has got some good colors to it, and it really does have a little bit of oomph and a little bit of pop to it. Again, a nice smaller size for somebody who maybe doesn't wear a lot of jewelry and wants to have a little bit of good color vibe to hang around with. Okay. So the other thing that these bracelets have in common is their length. And guys' bracelets probably run from about 8 1/4 to about 9 1/4. So we're working kind of on a fairly small palette here, a small canvas. We don't really have to go very long to make these bracelets happen fairly quickly. If you're in doubt at all about sizing, and yes, last week we had Ivan come and model a bracelet for us. If you're at all in doubt about sizing, you can think about t-shirt size. You know, if they're kind of in the up to a large t-shirt, they're probably going to be in about that 8 1/2 to maybe 8 3/4. And if you're bigger than that, extra large or double extra large, I'd add a loop to the buttons, to the loop end. I'd add 1 knot and 2 knots. So it's a little bit adjustable. You know, if you find that the first one works fine, then go ahead and cut this guy off if you like. Now, Janice also gave me some really great tips about using a little tiny bit of glue on these. Since they were using a fairly large leather, this 1.5 millimeter, it's really a great idea to put a little glue in the knot as you're tightening it. And once that's tight, that glue will hold everything together. We're going to use the Zap glue for this. And I've actually used the Zap glue in 2 spots on the samples that I'm going to work on today. I use some for my Ceylon thread, and then I would use it again for my knots. With my macrame, I probably don't have to use it if I tuck my tails under nicely, and don't lose those too much. Okay? So, any good questions?
Not too much yet.
No, nothing? Okay, excellent. I did pick out a few alternative colors that I thought kind of went well into these 3 bracelets. And one of them would be in our Super Dad to go ahead and play with the Pony Express. You know, this is another bead that has a good size to it, but if you're looking for another copper color or even a brass, these would look really great in this particular piece, right? So that's kind of a nice alternative. You could use the Queen Shadow if you wanted to in this case. Okay. And then I pulled a couple of other colorways of the rondelles because I thought they were real pretty. And this is the one that Janice chose for Papa Bear. With only 3 strands, I managed to get them totally tangled up. So Papa Bear kind of comes in this colorway. It's a variation of ochres and dark reds. And then there's a couple other color patterns that I really liked. I thought this one with the variegation of yellow and orange was real pretty. And here's the one with the mixed strands again. Greens, dark purples, ivory, kind of aged ivory. Really pretty in those rondelles. And for the aged Ragnarok, if you were going with that smaller seed bead size, there's actually a couple choices that you could do. We could have the Cube Picasso mix. So this has got a little bit more color to it. A little bit of purple, a little bit of green. This might be a little more adventuresome. And then I thought the Aged Caribbean was really pretty. I gotta tell you, I'm really a sucker for a bead with a stripe on it. So the minute I see anything that has a stripe there, I really get really jazzed by that, so I really like it. Linda Cole, I will check on the color of the yellow and orange one. Or maybe Janice or Gita will beat me to it.
And then we had a question, are the
Sure.
edges of, from Susan, are the
Oh.
edges of the metal beads sharp enough to cut the seal on?
Nope. Let me show you these metal beads. And these are made in by the Hill Tribe people. Okay. And the holes actually do vary a little bit. Not too much, but they're very rounded in.
Mustard mix.
Mustard mix. Mustard mix was the answer to this guy. Mustard mix. So your fine silver beads actually have very rounded edges. And that's a great question. A lot of metal beads, the way they're manufactured, they tend to have a very rough edge around the hole. These fine silver beads, very soft. And fine silver means it's pure silver. So sterling silver has a little copper mixed in. The fine silver is just a pure silver. Okay? So these ones have very, very soft, easy to work with holes. Okay? Oh, and I would love to put those buttons in front of you just one more quick second. You know, for guys' bracelets, I think working with
Just a little bit.
this way.
Yeah, perfect.
I think guys bracelets, picking a bracelet button that is a little bit more smooth and not too glitzy, not too fussy, so that it doesn't catch on things, and that it tends to go with the rest of the choices that a guy might be wearing. You know, you don't want to be too glitzy glammy. Okay. Now, I did pick out some surfer cord colors, which I thought were really pretty. And I thought these with any of these glass rondelles would look really pretty. And then you could actually pick up some seal-on colors as well. And I thought,
You're right at the edge of
okay, we're going a little towards fall here in this combo.
Yeah.
Better?
Yes.
A little bit towards fall in these combos, but any one of these I think would really work well. You know, if your guy's not a meat eater and wants to avoid leather, and there are lots of folks that like that, you could actually use the surfer cord right in place of the leather. Okay. So for all of these bracelets, all three of these designs, you would only need one pack of leather or surfer cord. So the leather comes in a 4-yard piece, and I cut a 4-yard piece myself this morning and made 3 bracelets ready to roll. And here's the rest of the leather I have left over. So I have a little bit of spare, right? So one other thing that we're going to work with today is a collapsible eye needle. Now, being a seed beater, I really am I'm a believer in needles. And we can work with 2 different options for our seal-on for threading it through the beads. A collapsible eye needle, a flexible eye needle if we like, or we can harden the ends with a little bit of glue. So I actually made some hardened ends already on one of my pieces of thread, and it does work really well. A flexible eye needle is going to be a little bit springier and a little finer, so if I had smaller thread, I might be wanting to go with that. One of the advantages to these collapsible eye needles is that little twist that they have at the end. I'm going to show you one here that's out of the package. So the way this eye is made, the eye itself has a little bit of a twist at the end, so it grips and holds onto the thread. We're going to use these when we're stringing our beads, but we're also going to use these when we come to hiding the tails at the end in our macrame. Alright? So we can use 2 spots, and it's a really handy little piece. So I do like these guys, and if you notice the way they're made is that the wire they're made out of is then twisted, and it's actually tapered to a point. So the flexible eye needles don't have that taper, they're a blunt end. But if you find that taper at the end getting kind of wibbly wobbly and starting to unwind, just use your flush cutters to trim it off. Don't use your scissors or your thread snips, okay? And that you can just keep cutting until you have a good end.
And Tammy wants to know,
Sure.
I know that's the 1.5 surfer cord that you were using
Yes,
there.
1.5 on the leather as well.
Yeah.
So don't forget to go to the website and look under the Facebook page. The materials lists are all there, and you can use them as a recipe if you like. You can replace them with any color that you might want to do, but it gives you all the bead counts and the amount of thread and everything. Okay? So I took the time this morning, before we came on, to set myself up with my leather and my button on our brand new burlap boards. I hope some of you guys are looking at this who that are maybe selling your jewelry. It actually is a beautiful board, and there's a matching tray for it. So if you're looking for something to put your jewelry out in, it's really pretty. You know, the velvet boards can get a little dusty after a bit, but I love the looks of these. So I just thought they would be a fun one to play with today. Okay, and they're new, so I know we have a few, but if we run out, we'll get more. Don't you worry. All
They're
right.
a little back ordered right now. But
Are they? Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of macrame. And I have a piece of Ceylon that I cut. And Janice told me I needed about 2 feet. So I cut a little more. Sorry, Janice. That's the way I roll. I want to make sure I've got enough. And I did take a baggie, put a little bit of my Zap glue on it, and run it over the ends of my threads. So the end of my thread on both ends is nice and stiff now, so I can use it as a needle instead of having to put a needle on for a bit. So you'll find that that loosens up, and you may have to do it again, but on a short bracelet like this you probably won't have to. And we can also take our thread snips and trim that end so it's very, very fine. It'll poke through our beads really easily. That's another nice thing to make your life a little easier. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can secure this onto a board or onto a deep dish tray or a macrame board. I really like the little clamps, and they're something that I've been using for a long time, and it's just what I'm very habituated to, so I really like to work with it. I usually just tip the button a little bit to the side or down so that I can clamp at the top, and then I bring the leather down and I clamp it at the bottom, and I use the tray halfway if I'm going to use the make a short bracelet. If I'm going to make a long one, I'll use it the long distance.
And Janice says you need a yard.
Oh, okay. Well, good thing then,
least a
because I
yard.
cut a yard.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a little bit, a scotch more. I did cut my piece of leather, 2 12-inch pieces, so 2 feet here, which leaves me a little bit of extra down here at the end, and I may have to move my piece up the board a little bit, and that's fine. That's as you should do if you're doing your regular laddering. Now, there's a couple ways we can get this started, and I have a tendency to just like to jump in right into macrame. And I noticed that on some of Janice's pieces, that she actually threaded it first through the buttonhole and then started her macrame. And I think one of the advantages to this is that you actually get a little bit more security having that thread not going anywhere, and things do not move around. Okay, so I'm going to follow the pros, because Janice is definitely a pro at laddering. And pull my thread right through there. And just bring the 2 ends together so they're pretty even. You know, I love the fact that macrame is a little bit forgiving in that it doesn't have to be a perfect even end if we don't need to. And go ahead and clip it again with my clamps. Now, the other tip that I have gained from Janice, and I got to tell you, one of the advantages to working with people who've been doing this for a long time is that you get really, really good tips. And slipping a spool underneath this leather so that I have a little bit of room to work underneath it, oh my goodness, that was a life changer for me. If I got nothing else out of that from Janice, that was just a life changer for me. So I'm going to go ahead and start this macrame knot, and I'm sure that you guys all remember how this goes. We start with a P or a Q. I'm going to make a bend in my thread. It comes across the top of my 2 ladderers, and I'm going to go under and come out that loop and bring it right up underneath the button. Now, one of the things that I also have to be wary of being a seed beater is tension. And Janice reminded me this morning, leave a little air, and I said, I understand, I know. So you need a little air in these. In other words, we don't want to do it so tightly that it doesn't bend comfortably and that it doesn't buckle. That's one of those things that I had a hard time when I first learned how to ladder, because I was sure I needed to make everything really, really tight and snug. I think one of the things you might try to do is, instead of being tight and snug all the time, just be consistent with what you do. Rather than trying to worry yourself into, is it tight enough, is it too tight, is it too loose? Just giving it that consistent tug at the end each time, and that will help you have your pieces be very even and uniform. Okay? Working okay to the side like this, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like everybody can see it pretty clearly. Sometimes even I have to stop and look and remember what I'm doing. And we're going to macrame here for, you know, a prescribed amount of knots, but how many altogether? Probably a ½ inch or so. Maybe not even. And I will bring my measuring tape down and throw a quick measurement on there. So let's see. From first knot, I am about, I guess about 1/4 inch long right now. And I think that's probably good for that particular macrame. Okay. So then I'm ready to start with my laddering. You know, everybody does has their preferences for materials and workspaces and how they hold things. I just like things to be stable, and I tend to also do things kind of the same way each time. I get kind of boring, right? So when we put in this first piece, this is going to give us our first bead. And again, referring back to Janice's recommendation about a little bit of air, you'll notice that at the top here, there's a little visible open triangle. So I'm going to put my bead in here, but I'm not going to wedge it up in there as tight as I can get it. I'm going to have a little bit of space. On some of the other designs, she actually used a smaller bead to help taper down just a little bit. And out of this Ragnarok mix, I bet she chose a little bit skinnier bead to go at the beginning and end. Okay, so that's one of the advantages to having a little bit of bead variety inside a mix of beads.
And a couple of Janice comments. She just
Sure.
says she wants the button to breathe.
Want the button to breathe
And then,
button.
another comment was that she would do 3 full square knots, but
3 full square knots.
to do what's comfortable.
Right. Okay. Let's see. I think I have 1, 2. I actually have 3, Janice. I did it without even noticing. Perfect. See? That's why you go to the experts. Okay. Awesome. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and start my weaving. And when I do loom weaving or when I do bead weaving of any sort, one of the things I try and do is just get myself into a rhythm or something very consistent. So I brought my threads up in the middle, and I'm going to slip on a bead on one side. And see, I really like those little hardened ends with a little bit of super glue. All right. Pull it right up and let it nestle in between the 2 leathers. Okay, so there's my air space. You see that? That little bit of triangle of space right in here lets that bead move a little bit and breathe. And I'm going to bring my threads around, back up in the center. And one thing I liked about this was that I could pull it up against the leather just a little bit. That gave me a nice, consistent situation for my next bead. And you know what? I've learned that it doesn't matter which side you put this bead on first, but I have a tendency to do it on the right, which, you know, I guess that's just me.
This one in,
All right.
It's sort of hard to see.
The black leather on the black leather.
Maybe even actually doing it's more straight with the thing. People can actually see what you're doing a little bit better, I think.
How's that?
Yeah, I think that gives it a better view of what it actually.
I'm going to bring that.
What you're seeing mostly is the side of the cord.
Right. No, well, we don't want to see just the side of the cord. We were experimenting today with different views as usual. So that's all one big experiment. Right. Bring that right around just like that. And it moves along pretty quickly. I think, and I think Janice is pretty correct on this time-wise, I think this is about an 1.5 hour project per bracelet. which means that if I had to do it after dinner one night before I went to bed, I probably could manage it. If I had to get up extra early in the morning before I went to work, I might be able to manage it then too. I have to tell you, that's one of my favorite beading times, is early in the morning before anybody else is up. And it's quiet, and I have my coffee and maybe a little bit of the radio in the background, and good. And get a lot done.
And the 4 yards of the
Leather
leather
is enough for all 3 bracelets. Yeah. So 1 package of leather or 1 package of surfer cord, you could create all 3 of these bracelets and have a little left over. Right? Right up in the middle. You know, I wish I did more laddering in a funny way, and I guess I should just make it so. But I enjoy it. It's just it's not as fast moving, I guess, maybe as the designing I do for other things. And I think that's maybe what slows me down a little bit. So I haven't done enough of it to get really quick, and so ergo it's slow, and that takes up a bit of time. But I do really like working with these.
Karen wants to know if you went through the first bead twice.
Nope, just once. Nobody told me I had to go twice. Was I supposed to go twice, JP? Dang it.
That was Karen that asked.
Okay,
Janice has not
good.
said anything.
Okay, good. Whew. So I also love the spool. Helps keep this up out of my way a little bit. But now that I've got a few beads on, I'm actually going to move everything up a little bit. So I'm going to loosen both ends of my clamps. Bring my beads up and over the top. And clamp again. Okay. Make sure that my threads just came through just the one time.
Well, Janice did reply, and she said, if you can reinforce that first bead, it's always best to do it.
Oh,
Only
okay.
if you can.
Okay.
Because sometimes,
I guess you can't sometimes because you can't go through it. Right? And I got to tell you, this spool thing, lifting this up, changed my life. This was just is genius, Janice. Or whoever originated this. Genius. All right. So I'm not going to stitch this whole piece, but I wanted to let you know that each one of these pieces, I think, is a great starter, and it's a great way to kind of get comfortable with the materials and the technique. Certainly by the end of 3 of these bracelets, you would be much more skilled and have had much more experience towards laddering, and so not as scary as it might seem. Okay? And I'll come back to this one in a little bit. I'm going to show you this start a couple of times. So we'll do it together. Okay?
Huh.
All right? What?
Kathy says something about wire for laddering.
Wire for laddering.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Seems it would be difficult. She said she saw a pattern for it.
Huh. Let me do one more pass through, and I'll show you guys. I'll put my hands a lot closer where I'm putting the beads on. Okay? I see that there was a question from Tammy.
She said, yeah, she
Yep.
can show us to see on through the beads.
So,
I'm zoomed in as tight as I can.
how's this?
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I think we're right on you.
All right. So this is the Ceylon with the hardened end that I cut the little end of. You can see it's got a little bit of super glue on it. I put it through one way, and then I put it through the other. Okay. So my threads are going east to west, west to east, right through the bead. And then I bring it together. Pull it up snug. How's that? Hope that worked for you, Tammy. I'll do it one more time nice and close, and then we'll move on to another bead setup.
I'm going to move the camera just to see if I can
Okay.
get a little bit.
So I actually like to hold it on that stiff part of the material and then put the next thread through. Okay, and I'll show you next with the needle. So when Janice talks about having a little bit of air what she's hoping that we have is a little bit of flexibility here, so that not looseness necessarily, but flexibility, so that the beads themselves are not jammed up so tightly that it doesn't bend and that they don't pop out and look a little awkward. I particularly like using Ceylon because I love the look of and the feel of the Ceylon on the edges of the leather. I think it looks really cool. I think it's a good combination with it size-wise. So this is the standard Ceylon, the largest size of the nylon thread that we have. I think it looks really great here. You could use a contrasting color, and that would be another way to add some more design element to your work. Okay. So I'm just going to go back and clip this guy in place, and then I'm going to move him out of the way. And surprise, I've got another one ready to go here. So this is the one with the glass rondelles. So we'll start again, and I'll use a couple of different techniques as well here, just to give you the advantage of seeing a couple different things get done. So here's another nice yard long or so piece of thread Janice recommended. And I'm going to try that again, feeding it through the loop of the button, pulling those two ends together, and then I'll start my macrame. And Janice said it was 3 full sets of knots. Oh, look what I didn't do though. Eesh. Once I get that spool under my threads, under my leather, I have so much more space to work. All right. So there's one side of the macrame thread knot. Hold up. I'm going to give it, what am I going to give it? A little air. And you'll notice sometimes that that very first knot that you make in the macrame is a little bit loose. And that's okay. Just come right back in when you got that second knot ready to go and tighten them both up, and you'll be fine. Okay? That's one full knot. Here comes the first half of the second one. And the second half of the second one. Oh, Lynn, I didn't know about waxing the Ceylon. Huh. I could try that.
Janice says it wasn't necessary, and I think Kate says she did, or she does.
Wax.
Or
go through the loop.
waxing the thread.
Oh, okay. All right. I can do that. I have my wax right at hand. Now I didn't harden the ends of these threads with the glue. I'm going to use a needle instead. And this will be why we like this particular collapsible eye needle. That little twist that it has at the end of the eye holds onto the thread for you. And it makes life oh so nice. So you know, if you're doing regular sewing or something, you have to be careful that that thread end doesn't pull through. That collapsible eye does a really good job of holding onto it. So you don't have to worry that it's going to come off the end of the thread. And I kind of think it's a genius move on those needles. So one on each end. And I like a little bit of overlap just so that I have something to grip hold of and I don't have to pull my thread so long. So I'm going to take a strand of beads here, open this guy up. And you know, we're really kind of lucky with glass beads. They have really nice, generous, even holes to work with. So they make life a little easier, right? But I'm going to treat my needles and thread the same way I did last time. I'm going to come up through the middle. So this is, I'm getting ready for my first stitch. Now on this particular sample, Janice did one extra little bead to help taper down before she started with the glass. So I am going to use these little silver beads because they're so pretty. But I'm treating them the same way I did on the other one where I didn't have a needle. Put it on one needle, holding it there. I'm going to pop my other needle through the other direction and pull them through, both through. There's something I just love about a needle. And settle that bead right in between the two leather strands. Oh, I do like the wax on there, actually. Thanks. Who was it? Who said that to me about wax?
Lynn said you'll
Lynn
notice
Carling?
the difference.
I do notice a difference. It's kind of nice. It's a little bit
Yeah,
clingy to
Lynn.
itself. Oh. So here's my second bead. And this is again the glass rondelles. I get my needles crisscrossed through the middle and pull my thread through. A little tighter fit there. And you know, the wax is handy. That gives it a little bit of a stickiness, a little bit of tautness that's helpful. And again, I put both my needles through the middle, come up. And I just have a tendency to work on that right hand needle first. Put my bead right on and feed through.
Kathy had a question, but
Sure.
I'm not sure I understand it. She even said, is there a laddering pattern that uses one thread but goes back and forth instead of trading positions with the second thread?
Yes, and we actually call that the infinity stitch, Kathy. So if you look at some of our pieces when you have another design, the infinity stitch is used a lot of times with a thinner thread, so a KO thread or a fire line, where the thread loops from one side, goes through the bead, loops around, and comes out and picks up another bead and works through. So the thread still goes through the bead twice, and the outside of that thread is very much smaller. So it is great on with smaller beads like pearls. It'd be great with anything that a little gemstone bead, anything like that. So yes, we just call it infinity stitch instead of, it's still laddering, but laddering just with infinity stitch and not with the two thread style. I happen to like this one, and for these bracelets for the guys, we thought that the laddering this direction was two needle laddering was very handy. And I bet you it's in Tricks to Laddering on the website.
I believe Kate linked the
Did she?
infinity
Or
switch.
Gita? Gita. I think Kate got back on the plane.
Oh.
She got on her next flight.
I thought it said Kate, but
Oh, okay.
I can't see it, so
It's gone away?
it showed up on one screen but not on the other.
Oh, okay.
So I can't scroll back and see it. But somebody posted a link to it.
Ah, Janice did too. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, I like the wax. It's nice. It gives it just that little bit of tackiness that keeps things from being too slippery. Right? So this is moving right along. You know, this there's a lot of laddering projects that we do for Bead Shop, and
What's Gita?
oh, thanks, Gita.
Should have known. I mean, if it's
Gita's so
linking,
quick.
it's Gita.
Gita. We do lots of different laddering patterns, and you know, as a fairly new person at BeadShop.com, I haven't done as much laddering as many of you have. So it's always interesting to kind of see what happens while we're developing a new pattern or moving along through a new stitch. And when I'm learning something new or kind of getting good at something new, I really like to take my time and really spend a little bit of time working along with this. So one thing I thought was interesting was to notice that tapered in bead really helps this be a smooth transition. If we started off just with that larger bead, it would actually be a very big gap there at the top where we had that little bit of air. And this just makes it much smoother and much more lovely. You know, this is a great place to put in those odd onesie-twosie beads that you've got floating around that you're like, what am I going to do with this? I can't make an earring.
We got a question about why would the needle split the thread?
You know, one of the things that's nice about these needles is they're not actually very sharp. They do have a little bit of a point on there, but I was being only slightly careful with this. One technique that we talk about with seed beading a lot, and looming in particular, is when you put your needle through the bead, and I do this now whether or not I'm using two threads or one thread. What I want to try and do is aim the needle up so that it goes through the top of the tunnel, and I'm hoping you guys can see this a little bit on the screen. I'm aiming up so that in case there's a thread down here at the bottom, kind of scraping across the top of the tunnel of the bead and going
Almost
through.
exactly what Janice said.
Yeah.
Emily takes the needle along the top of the bead hole and scrapes the top of the bead hole so it doesn't.
So I'm kind of setting myself up to not have a problem here. And as a habit, it just happens so that I do it all the time, and I try not to do it otherwise. Now, if I've already got a thread through there, which in this case, in fact, I do, one thing I can do is move that bead along the thread a bit and actually hold it so that the thread is at the bottom of the tunnel. Can you see that? And then I'm going to bring my needle in again and scrape right across again the top of the tunnel, going the other direction. And that keeps me from splitting the thread. I say this a lot of time in my, oops, I made a mistake. I say this a lot of times in my seed bead classes. You know, when I first started seed beading, I did everything with doubled thread, and I worked, my tension was so tight and so firm that everything was just could stand up by itself. It didn't need any support inside. So to loosen my tension up, I found to use single thread, but while I was using double thread so much, I really had to be careful not to split the threads. So training myself with the more difficult situation worked out really good for me because it allowed me to make it so that I didn't have to make that mistake so much. So I made a mistake here, as you can see. I did not go under my leather cords on the sides before I did my bead. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is a seed beading trick, which I really like. I actually like to pull my thread out with my needle still attached, but I'm going to take it through the bead eye first. Okay, so instead of putting the point back through, another splitsy way of having problems with your thread, I'm going to gently pull my thread through, pulling through the eye of the needle first as the leader. And that tends to help me untangle really nicely without having to unthread my needles, which you can do with this type of needle. It's not so hard. But in general, if I have to undo, and I'm not taking my needle off, I will go back through eye first. Okay?
And Janice already answered Beth's question, but
Sure.
Could you do this without needles?
You could. These holes are a bit smaller. I still think I could do this without needles by using the threads that I had hardened with the glue. And I'll show you how to do that on the next one. So I'm going to do 3 starts here, and then I will come to a good sort of finishing end. Okay? So this is coming along really nicely. I'm very happy with it. I'm going to check for air. Now it might be a little bit snug, and this would be a time where, since I'm early on yet, I might be able to move these beads apart just a little bit. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so there is just a slight amount of space so that these guys move and bend pretty easily. And I checked this, you know, I'm almost halfway through, so I checked it at a good spot. Okay, so I'm going to quit on this guy and move on to the last one. Okay, so he's just going to hang out over here for us for a bit. Moving right along, right?
Interesting. Well, we got, I guess somebody asked Sarah about using Softflex to ladder, and she said it would work.
Yeah, you could definitely do it with Softflex. It would be very kind of metallic looking on the outside, although some of the colored Softflexes are really pretty. It would be sort of an interesting experiment. I think it would be adding a lot of weight overall to your piece. It would be feel a lot more heavy. Yeah, you totally could. I'm going to open up this package of Age Ragnarok, and this has just so many pretty colors of beads in it. And I noticed that it has some smaller ones in the mix, which is kind of fun to play around with. But I really like that. Ooh, this one's yummy. Look at that matte. It's almost like a terracotta plant pot. I like it. And this time I'm going to take a piece of thread that you haven't seen me work with yet, and I'm going to go ahead and do the glue technique to harden the ends. And this doesn't take very long.
Apparently they did do some of that when Sarah was on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. So I'm going to take some Zap glue. This is my Zap glue. I'm going to squeeze out a little blurb onto that Ziploc bag. Thank you, Kate Richburg. This is another good Kate Richburg trick. And you know, we use a new one because it looks prettier online, but if you want to use an old Ziploc bag at home, feel free, just as long as it doesn't come apart. I'm going to fold the end of my thread inside that little blob of glue, and I'm going to pull the thread right through. So it somewhat straightens it just a little bit, but it also just layers a little bit of glue on there. And I'm going to do the other end. Same little puddle of glue. Okay. So the Zap glue is very fast, and one of the things I like about it as a super glue goes is that it's actually pretty controlled because it is a gel. You know, back in the early days of super glue, I'm sure you all remember getting yourself stuck to something in super glue, and it wasn't a lot of fun. So this Zap glue dries pretty quickly, and it's not so runny, which I really like. And you can lay it on a plastic bag to dry if you like, for just a few minutes. You can hang it on a corner, you know, on the table, let it dry. Don't if you have a kitty cat around, not like our wonderful Alfie. But this stuff dries quickly enough that I can use it pretty fast and keep going right along with it. I do like the Zap glue also for gluing a knot. So in all of these ends where we finished off our thread, go ahead and glue that knot into place, and then you don't have to worry that it's going to untie as somebody's wearing it, right? Let's see how we're doing. Yeah, we're dry already. We're ready to roll. That's pretty neat, huh? So I do like to sometimes trim my little ends a little pointier, a little clearer, so I can pop it through the beads. And we'll go ahead and get started just the way we have already a couple of times, but you know, I like to show stuff. So I'm going to go through the loop of the button, pull it through. Try not to get too tangled because that's a headache. Use my clamps, and if you don't have a set of these clamps, get some. They're really awesome. I use them all the time. I use them to hold on to the end of my Softlex. Okay. Left a little room for my knot or my spool. All right. So here I am, ready to start again. So the macrame knot is very simple. We have two parts, two hitches to each knot, and they really work together to form a very secure connection. So the first half of the knot is to make that bend to the left-hand side. Lay the right-hand cord over it, go underneath your two leathers, and pull it up. Next one is going to be to lay it to the right-hand side, bent over. This is a P versus a Q. And bring the cord up and under. And I'll do the left-hand side again. And the right-hand side. So I thought on this one I will do a few and then I will end it off so you'll see what would happen when you get to the end. Okay? So I'm not going to finish the whole bracelet, I'm just going to go part way. So separating my two threads, my two leathers, bringing those cords up in the middle. Okay? One of the things I like about laddering is it's very rhythmical. You perform the same moves over and over again. So it's easy to sort of let your mind wander and enjoy the process, not worry too much about the technique that you have to really focus on too much. It's pretty relaxing. Okay? This is also one of those techniques I think it's great to teach kids. You know, one of the nice things about Father's Day is to have kids make things for their dads, or the men in their lives, or the mom men. And it's really not so hard as you might think to sit a kid down and get this all set up for them to keep working along on it. And I'm always constantly amazed when you work with a younger person and their eyesight's so really good and they can see what they're doing and they're very dexterous, and they get the hang of things pretty quickly. Okay. Oops. Oh, is that a green one? That's a blue one. Oh, that's a pretty one. Put that guy in there. So in this case, I'm just sort of letting the mix dictate what I'm putting on. I'm not trying to create a pattern, but you probably have enough beads here that you could make a pattern in the Ragnarok mix. And that's kind of one of the things I'm going to be talking about soon when we're doing some wire working, is working with the beads, what the beads have to tell you, and what allowances you can make to make what you've got be even more exciting. Sometimes it takes a little bit of effort, but you can absolutely make some cool things fly even a little bit more, be even a little bit more exciting. Alrighty, so I think that's going to be my last bead, and I will kind of end this off the way I would normally end it. So let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that this is my last bead, okay? That I've done my about 8 inches or so of beadwork, and it looks sort of like this. Janice has done a beautiful job on this, and I'm just going to throw my measuring tape down on it briefly here. So it looks like about door-to-door of beads, about 7 inches of beads. So then we have the button, and then the clasp giving us the rest. So you'll notice here at the end that there's a bit of macrame, just like there was at the beginning. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and macrame the way we have been doing, and aim for about 3 full knots with a little bit of air for Janice. Just for Janice, a little bit of air. You know, I didn't wax on this particular one. I guess I don't notice a huge difference, but when you're macrameing with wax thread, it does grip a little bit. It's a little bit sticky. It's kind of nice. It keeps things in place. And I think I need one more. Nope, that's the wrong way. Let's do it. Okay. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with the last little bit of your macrame cord. One thing that Janice likes to use is to use her collapsible eye needles to feed them up through the knots and take her cord up through a few knots and pull it through. And that's one way to do it, right? So if I use the needle to feed up through the cords, I can actually take both of my ends and pull them right through. JP, you're absolutely correct. That works like a charm, right? And then I'll take the second one and feed it up as well. And I think it's easier to thread the needle after you've got it inserted, but you can go either way with this. Oops. And those threads are nicely buried inside the knots. I'm going to take my thread snips and clip with just a little bit of tension. And there we go. I don't even really need to use any glue on that, okay? As those are really held in nicely by those neighbor macrame knots. So my last step would be to make a knot for the clasp.
Practically a ring.
Yeah, it's practically a ring, isn't it? It's a tiny sample. So when you're actually making that knot for the loop of the clasp, you want to make sure that the button will pass through easily without stressing that leather too much, okay? And, you know, really, that's what we need, is we need a clasp that's easy to put on, easy to take off. No guy will want to fuss with this for very long if it's a hard to put on bracelet. So I'm going to take my leather, make an overhand knot, and before tightening it, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. And I'm going to bring my button around to make sure that it fits through that knot easily. Right? We really want to make sure that you're making this so that it's appropriate and easy to wear. Okay? I've still got my knot open a little bit, so I'm going to grab some glue. And this is another place that our Zap glue is particularly good for. I'm just going to go right inside the knot and put in a little blurb of glue.
I was thinking a kitty-sized toy. Alfie would love that.
Alfie would love that, play with this. He's such a good boy. Kate's bringing him up right. So I have a little dab of glue inside, and then I'm going to push that knot closed. And I'm going to let that glue dry inside there. Now with the Zap, I won't worry about overnight too much, but with our if I was using Hypo Cement, I would really want to have that overnight idea. But I find the Zap is just so quick and so easy. I'm kind of a convert. Now to really give this a little bit of oomph at the end, if you like, we can double knot each one of the ends singly. So each one of these can have a knot. May as well go whole hog, right? And we'll also put a little glue in those, just so that they don't untie.
Could you use E6000 with this as well?
You know, I like E6000. One of my problems with it is that it's so goopy. It's kind of hard to control. Most of the glues have a little bit of odor to them. E6000 has got a lot of odor. And if you had any kind of respiratory issues or you had birds or anything like that, I would be careful about the E6000. It's pretty stinky. The Zap has a little bit of odor, not so bad. You could also just do this out in the garage if you wanted to avoid the odor. Once it's dry, it doesn't have any at all. And I like using my flush cutters, my maxi shears, to trim the leather. I find it's a little bit hard to trim with scissors. I'll give it a little angled cut just because I can. Right?
So this is using Cindy and Rosie, both like Kate Surgeon's knot.
Oh, doing one extra go through? Absolutely. So a surgeon's knot would be to make that same overhand knot, but pass through one more time. And that gives you a little bit extra knottage happening. So yeah, absolutely you could do that. Be a nice test. It'd be a nice little bit of extra. Okay. So the things I kind of come away with, I guess, from learning a little bit more about laddering and doing a little bit more laddering is being real consistent with my tension, being real consistent with the moves that I make, choosing my beads wisely, making sure the hole's big enough to go through twice comfortably, and kind of just taking my time with it. It's really a fun technique, but it is one that takes a little bit of time to do. So you have to give yourself that little bit of space and kind of be ready to go for it. Okay? Awesome. Okay, well, Brandon, I think we can kind of wrap it up. Did I cover it all? Janice, did I miss anything? I don't think I did. I think I got it all.
All right. Should I move the...
Yeah, let's do it.
We did, of course, get the "What are you wearing?" question.
Oh, okay. This is one of my few laddering pieces that I have made.
Hold on for just a moment to show off. Got to have you in the camera so we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me straighten up.
Whoop.
That's
I was going to say that doesn't look straight.
Okay.
So this is one of the few laddering pieces I've done. I think I've done a couple. And this was some matte aquamarine I think I picked up in Tucson. And I broke it up into a bunch of different colors, kind of let it ombre itself through the colors, and stitched it up. I have a little Tide Pool button on here from Cynthia Thornton, Green Girl, one of my faves, good friends. So that's my fancy bracelet. I haven't done a lot. If I had it to do over again, and this is one of the problems of learning new things, what would I change to do something over again? I would actually use a heavier Ceylon. I think I used the medium-sized Ceylon, not the heaviest one. So I think I would do it over again with heavier Ceylon. I think the beads look a little bit small against that Ceylon, and maybe even a bit bigger leather. Maybe I'd go up to a 1.5. I think this is about a 1. Or even a bigger leather than that. Maybe a 2mm leather would look good with this. Make it real beefy. Okay? So we all do this. We all redesign as we're going along, and oh, I wish I should have. It's the next one. Or if you make something and you don't love it, cut it apart and make it again. It's okay. The beads don't mind. So we've got these 3 beautiful designs to work with, 3 colorways, 3 beautiful choices, and lots of alternatives if you want to do a quick bracelet for Father's Day. I do like the knotting with the needle, using the needles, but if you're going to use no needle, make sure you have some zap glue to harden the ends of the thread to work with. That makes life a lot easier. Don't forget, you can absolutely watch this program over and over and over again as many times as you like on Facebook. You can also find it on our YouTube channel. And remember, if you want to miss the chit-chat bit at the beginning, roll in 5-10 minutes or something like that. We do have a couple of sales coming on for the rest of today. Make sure that if you choose to put your order in today for the next hour, so till about 12:30, and you put in the messages, the thanks Dad, we'll be entering you in a raffle. We've got a couple of lovely little packages of beads here coming your way. Leather and rondelles and buttons, really pretty colors. So lovely ones to work with. Ooh, this green and black is really fancy. Ooh, I like that. So we'll put you in a raffle if you make an order in the next hour, an order of any size that you might like. We will draw randomly 2 people from that raffle. We'll let them know later today on Facebook, and it'll come to you with your order. So you'll get a nice little bundle of beads and leather to play around with. So that's Thanks Dad in your shipping notes, and we will enter you in that part of our giveaway for today. We also have a sale going on for the next 24 hours, up till, well, no, I guess actually the next 12, up till midnight tonight. And this is the cord sale. All of our cords are 25% off. Add cord 25 in your coupon line, and that will be, how did you guys know Alfie was coming back on?
Well, I saw the request.
Did you?
So.
Awesome, he's going to help me. Hi Pumpkin. Hi, is it lunchtime? Do you need some lunch? Huh?
Aww.
Oh my goodness. You're so good. So add cord 25 in your discount line to get 25% off cords. Oh, ow, ow.
Want me to take it back?
No, it's okay. I got it. Oh, he's going to bite me. Oh, he's going to bite me. He's such a bad boy. Yes, he is. Yes. Oh, such a beanie. Oh, so fierce. So fierce, Alfie. I know. Isn't he cute? He's so fierce. He's so fierce.
Kate's happy.
Yeah.
All right.
So, 25% off on cords. Add that cord 25 to your discount line. And thanks, Dad, to get in the raffle for the next hour, all the orders that we take towards this. And I wanted to say a special thank you to all the dads out there and all the moms that are both moms and dads. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And all the honorary dads, make sure you have a happy Father's Day as well. And to spend some time sitting on that lawn that you work so hard on, okay? Look at that little bad boy. Look at that bad boy. Are you biting me? You're a panther, aren't you? Yes, you're a panther. All right, I guess we're going to sign off for the day. Alfie needs some lunch because he wants to eat me. We will see you guys next Friday, or next Wednesday. Kate will be seeing you Thursday and Friday, I bet, this week, live from Bead and Button when she starts her adventure Thursday night with her competition.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So we're anxious to see it. Kate, travel safe. You too, JP. We will talk to you while you're at Milwaukee at the really big show. And Alfie is holding down the fort. Alfie, don't bite. Don't bite. Ouch, ouch. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we will see you again very soon. Be well. Be well. Ouch. Ouch. You're biting Auntie Emily? Why are you biting? Huh?